Good day, guys, and welcome back to the Kart Class Podcast. Today we're looking at how much seat time is necessary for a driver. Now, we see some drivers that are at the track, multiple times a week, and we see some drivers that are there, once or twice a month, maybe even less. Now, what's sort of the perfect balance when it comes to seat time? I would say that for younger drivers, let's just say it's a micro or cadet 9 class, so between ages 7 to 10, more laps in a way. So if we're saying 2 sessions a week, I would recommend that's a good number. Any more than that is an added bonus, maybe a little bit of overkill, and anything less is totally fine as well. It's just that the rate of improvement and development for someone in that age bracket is going to be exponential when it comes to, twice a week compared to, once or twice a month, especially in that, just the way they learn, these young kids. So kart racing is, we've got simulators now, we've got access to videos, things like that. But for a kid that young, until they can get their bum in the seat, actually at the track and feel the vibrations and feel the curbs and get arm pump and the G-forces on their neck, things like that, that's where it pays dividends. So I would try and say, like I said, if you can get them twice a week, if we look at football training, cricket training, basketball training, when you're trying to compete in that age bracket, you're definitely you're definitely going to a training session once a week, probably even twice. Now with that, so you've got 2 coaching sessions, and it might just be 1 hour, and then you've got probably a game as well. So again, that 1 to 2 hours of game time. So you're getting around 4 hours a week of playing time. Kart racing is a little bit different because, a natural session on the track is probably 10 minutes on the track. And for a kid, because it's a little bit different to some of those ball sports, they could get a little bit more tired. So if you looked at doing, say, 2 2-hour sessions during the week, and, with that, you may get 3 or 4 sessions an hour. So you're doing sort of 8 sessions at about 8 to 10 laps a session. So if you're trying to map out 150 laps per week, 600 a month, that's over 12 months, that's 7,200 laps a year. That's the bare minimum from a practicing point of view. Then you start throwing in some races here and there. So it might be once or twice a month you do a race. And then all of a sudden you look at doing, we've done 12 or 15,000 laps. So these are the things that, like I said, it's hard to simulate by watching a video and by being in a simulator, but that's probably the bare minimum when it comes to that age bracket. When I've coached kids in the next age bracket, so that's say 10 to 13, more in the cadets or cadet 12 or mini class, and then to the junior category, I would recommend, definitely 1 a week. These kids, being that little bit older, they can understand things faster. And also when you are speaking to them, they're going to have a little bit more attitude in this age bracket. But like I said, they do understand things. If you said hit a certain part of the curve, whether it's the blue square or the white square, they're going to identify it a lot faster than, a 7-year-old, because things are happening a lot faster when you're younger and you're still driving at a very similar speed. So I think once a week is still really important for people in that age bracket. Again, it just keeps them sharp. Like, you don't want to rock up to a race event having not driven for 2-3 weeks. And if you only get 1 or 2 sessions before qualifying, you want to be sharp from the outset. Like, you don't want to just ease into session 1, you're a second off the pace, and then all of a sudden you just, you're came up to grips, you're down to 3 or 4 tenths of the pace. And then we go to new tyres for qualifying, and that's when you really need to be, driving at 100%. Like, you need to be on the absolute limit to maximize that new tyre run. But if you're not sharp, then you're going to still be driving at 95%. And now all of a sudden we're back to that half a second or even more off again because we haven't maximized that new tyre run. So super important that where possible, now obviously there's time commitment, there's school commitment, there's other sports that come into play, there's, just general life. Weekends is hard as well for some people. But trying to aim for that once a week is going to be really critical. And so I've seen it with drivers who are now in supercars, and I used to coach them in the Cadet 9 category, and they basically treated kart racing as any other sport where they'd try and aim for 2 2-hour sessions during the week, simulating like a basketball or a football training session. And this was just going to their local track after school, not so much coaching point of view, just parents taking the kids out just to keep them in the groove. And then on a weekend, again, doing a club or a local race. And then where possible, they'd travel from Adelaide to Melbourne to get a couple of days of coaching in before a major race. Bang, they're into another race in Victoria. Back home twice a week in Adelaide, and then go from there. Doesn't always work out in your favour, because obviously where I would say that kids are getting burnt out is if they're not seeing much of an improvement. So we're going to the track and we're going twice, 3 times a week, kids stuck on a bit of a plateau. Maybe you just need a 2 or 3 week reset where you do other fun things. So it's not so much just drilling into karting. It's like, you know what? Kids got a bit of mental overload. They just can't quite maximize what you're trying to say. There's frustrations building between kid, parent. We're not seeing the reward for effort. Just have a little bit of a breather. It doesn't hurt to have that little bit of a refresh. I used to actually play other sports too while I was racing go-karts. That was a nice little refresher as well. Do your go-karting it's more of an individual sport. Obviously, it's with your parents as well. But then going to play cricket was just fun. I was going there with 10 or 12 other mates, hitting the ball around, chasing the ball, just something different. Then when I sort of went back to the kart racing on the weekends, that was fun again, because it wasn't just like drive all the time, because that gets boring, especially when you're by yourself. So look at ways to just refresh it, make it exciting. We don't tend to want to always have these little rewards when you get to sort of PBs, because, whether it's, takeaway dinner or something like that, like it could be just a small reward going. If you get into the 53s for the first time, the kids might be able to squeeze a little bit more out. That works. It does work from time to time. Obviously, if the kid knows he's always in for a reward, then he might just sort of push enough to get a reward, but he's still got to lift up his sleeve to get another reward next time. So play it by ear with your own son or daughter. But yeah, that's where kids can get burnt out, is if it's just not getting fun anymore, then it's more of a chore rather than, hey, karting's so much fun. I cannot wait to leave school at the end of the day because I'm going to go to the kart track and I'm really excited to go there, rather than, oh man, not again. Do I have to go karting? Like I don't want to be there. You're not going to get much out of those sort of days. So just play it by ear with, how your kid reacts to going to the kart track. Obviously, if they're the ones that are driving it, hey, mum or dad, can I please go to the track? Well, then obviously you're trying to, where possible, take them there, because they're in the moment, they want to learn. They want to go faster. They want to try and push themselves. So just sort of feed off of them as well. They're going to be sort of, helping drive rather than your passion and you're forcing them to go to the track. See what their reaction is and try and keep it as fun as you can on a practice day, because ultimately, if you're not having fun, you're not really going to try and improve or try and go fast as well. So that's where I'd sort of try and find the happy balance, is that, younger kids, try where possible twice a week for just 2-hour blocks. That's more than enough. And then for the slightly older kids, definitely once a week, just because they can pick up things a lot faster. The only downside is when you're a little bit older, you're potentially starting against kids that have been racing for a few years. So if you want to catch that up a little bit faster, then obviously you have to try and get a few more days in here or there to, pick up your skills and your speed a little bit faster as well. But try and aim off that with, like I said, how many times go to the track. Hopefully this episode has been somewhat beneficial for you. And if it has, then obviously feel free to shoot it around the karting community so more people can actually, try and listen and learn from our support. Until next time, guys, I appreciate you tuning in. Cheers.